Hello and welcome to Procurement Uncut, brought to you by BizClick and our sponsors for this series, Amazon Business. This is your go-to podcast for all things procurement. If you're ready to move from being a tactical buyer to a strategic leader, you're in the right place. Tune in and together we can build a better bottom line. Hello and welcome to the Procurement Magazine podcast. I am your host and senior editor of Procurement Magazine and Supply Chain Digital, Aaron McMillan. I'm delighted to be here in Barcelona for Gartner's Supply Chain Symposium, and I'm joined with an absolute titan of the procurement industry. I'm joined by Jacob Nielsen, Chief Procurement Officer at Nestlé. Hi, Jacob. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. So, Jacob, we're in Barcelona. Why are events like Gartner Supply Chain so important?
No, it's obviously great to go and listen to some of the speakers and what's happening in the industry. But what I enjoy most actually is the peer-to-peer connection. So speaking to other CPOs or procurement colleagues and understand what's going on in their world and relate a bit to some of the challenges we're all facing.
How common are those challenges across? What do you find that you're very often kind of talking about the same thing or slightly different?
No, in recent time, I think it has been a lot of the same things. I just presented a slide to our executive board the other day that over the last 5 years, we've basically had one major event happen every year that significantly has distorted supply chains, but also caused financial concerns or input cost increases. Going back to the pandemic in the early 2020s, to the Ukraine-Russia incident, the first Middle East conflict, U.S., let's call it trade war or tariffs, and now another Middle East conflict that obviously impacts the crude oil price, but distorts supply chains and has impact on a lot of our material costs going forward. So forecasting this and helping the business plan for very uncertain elements is not an easy task. And I assume my colleagues are facing exactly the same
Absolutely.
thing.
Some of the things you've mentioned there, we've spoken about before on this podcast, there's definitely kind of running themes throughout the industry. So before we kind of look at what's happening right now, I just wonder if we could just go back to the start and just tell me, when you were younger, did you dream of leading procurement for Nestlé, or how did you end up here?
Surprisingly not. No, I had no clue I would work in procurement at the end of the day. I grew up in Denmark, and my first job actually was working for the Danish embassy in Canada. So in the diplomacy, in the trade commission, helping Danish export into Canada. I did that for a couple of years. Then I'd returned to Denmark and I worked actually for a food ingredients company, so selling to Nestlé. So I was in sales for 8 years with Nestlé as my key account. And then one day they called me and said, "We're looking for somebody to lead a procurement team in that category. Why don't you join?" So that's how I ended up in Nestlé. That's how I ended up in procurement. So not planned at all. And even at that point, thinking that I would end up leading the function was not at all in my mind.
You kind of think about sales and procurement. I mean, how similar are those two operations? If you were able to kind of use those, did those skills kind of come transferable? And what was the biggest asset when you?
Obviously, it's commercial roles. There's negotiation, etc., and depends on what side of the table you sit at. It's ultimately the same strategies you try to develop. But I would say, and this is one of the things that some people, when they ask me around the difference between sales and procurement, I think in sales, they're very good at when they close a contract to celebrate the contract. They can see the margin contribution, the impact they have on the bottom line. But when we do a big negotiation or contract in procurement, we're always being questioned, well, did competition buy better? Or could you have gotten a lower price, etc.? So there's always this element of doubt, even when we know we've done a fantastic deal or contract that impacts a bit the celebration. So I don't think we're great at celebrating our success in procurement.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we've spoken about that a few times on this podcast. Given that
kind of the nature of a procurement operation is almost against that celebration. As you mentioned, there's always that thought, could we have done this better? Could we have got a better price? Have we got the best supplier? Kind of twofold question. How do we get better at that? And how do you help your team kind of celebrate the small wins?
Yeah, I don't know how to get better at that. I think no, we do benchmarking, so also trying to factually prove to the doubters whether or not it is a good deal or a good contract. So ultimately, I think if we remain fact-based, I think the celebration or the recognition will come. How do I do it with my teams? Look, I'm a very competitive person by nature. And what drives me to be competitive is also winning and celebrating the wins. So we do at Nestlé Procurement try to celebrate whenever we can and reward and recognize our teams for the efforts done. We are halfway into a 3-year transformation program at Nestlé Procurement, delivering a significant impact for the business in terms of unlocking efficiencies. This is being widely recognized by our executive board, and that recognition fuels our energy even more to achieve even bigger things. And following this event in Barcelona, I'm on my way to London for the World Procurement Conference, where there's also an award show, and there the Nestlé Procurement team is nominated as one of the procurement teams of the year. So hopefully we get that recognition as well.
Yeah, we've spoken before about your transformation effort. Tell me, what was kind of the moment for you where you felt that, we have to change how we operate. We need to kind of pull this back, start again, transform and improve.
Yeah, look, I took this role about 1.5 years ago, and I didn't come into the role thinking now we need to transform and now we need to deliver more, because honestly, in Nestlé Procurement, we have a track record of delivering very solid efficiencies. Also, when I do benchmark studies, etc. So it was not me coming into the role saying we need a transformation. It was basically a business requirement. Nestlé post pandemic with massive input cost increases, inflation in the world, an inability to fully pass on these cost increases to the consumer, needed to look at how can we extract more value or take more money out of the system to get back to growth. And there was a clear strategy from our executive board for Nestlé to get back to volume growth. We need to invest in our brands, and to invest in our brands, we need money. And where do you find money? I mean, the CEO at the time looked at me saying, "You're spending 55 to 60 billion Swiss francs a year. You should be able to extract more." And look, we took the challenge and built a program to deliver an incremental savings pipeline on top of our normal run rate for the business to reinvest in growth. And the narrative here and the excitement also within procurement to be a key enabler of the Nestlé strategy was very appealing. And therefore, we started this transformation program. And then, obviously, this started out by us wanting to unlock the cash to invest in growth. But we wanted also to make it sustainable. We've done many of these programs. I'm sure there's many organizations who have done savings programs in the past, and they're quite successful, but they're usually one-off. The specification starts mushrooming again, or input cost goes back to where they were. So I really wanted this to be not only a savings program, but a transformation program that made it sustainable over time. And we're using AI, digital, obviously, for data analysis, to take some of the complexity out of our systems. We have too many specifications. In many cases, we have too many suppliers. So starting a program where we lock the system, if you want. Example, raw and pack specifications. And Nestlé, they had traditionally been locally created. in the markets, in each and every factory for that matter. And as I said, if you do a harmonization simplification program and save a lot of money, but do nothing, then over time they start to proliferate again. But this time it's different. We're doing the harmonization, the simplification, but then we're locking the system. So we've taken away, if you want, the rights of the local markets to do their own specification creation and brought that into a central function. And then we've created catalogs. Yeah, so in the future, if you want to develop a new product in a market and you need a raw material specification, you no longer just create it. You go into the catalog and you choose from the existing ones. And that means we'll have less specifications, bigger volumes per specification, which, by the way, helps in terms of supply disruption, because then you have a network of factories using the same specification. So then you can alternate within or allocate within the network of factories if you have a shortage. But it also means that the bigger volume, you can leverage more of your spend and drive down costs. So that's just some of the examples of what we're driving in terms of transformation.
It's been an absolutely incredible transformation that you've kind of led over at Nestlé. So wondering what it's like. How did you kind of feel when your CEO's coming to you being like, you need to extract more savings, you need to do more? How does that feel? And kind of from that moment on, what was kind of your mindset?
Yeah, look, in many ways it feels scary. As I said, we were already delivering significant cost reductions every year as part of our run rate, and now we had to giddy up and do even more. But you also, as a leader, sometimes you become an actor, right? You put on an act saying, with confidence, we will find a way to deliver this. You say this in front of your senior stakeholders, and then you turn around and then you also, with conviction and confidence, explain to your team that we can do this. But meanwhile, you have self-doubt, because who knows if we can do this or not. But if you have the right team around you and the right support also from senior management in terms of sponsorships, you have a feeling that you will eventually make it. But obviously you're out on a limb. You put your neck out, and as I said, with confidence, you explain to your stakeholders and your team that you will make this. And then you get going, and then you hopefully succeed. And I can say already a year and a half into it, we have delivered more than 50% of our ambition. So luckily we are succeeding, but I will not, or I should be honest to say that there is a degree of self-doubt, but that doesn't solve anything. You need to, with confidence, as I say, believe in the story.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're given a mandate like that, there is pressure is expected. You're going to feel that you're like, I need to deliver this. When those moments of self-doubt creep in as a leader, how do you quiet those voices and get to the task at hand?
Yeah, look, it's a constant battle, to be honest. And I think many people experience this when they get promoted. They are wondering, am I good enough? Can I do the job, etc. And I had the same. And in this period of time when we were setting this up, I was presenting to the executive board on a monthly basis, at key conferences within Nestlé. I was exposed on podcasts and TV, internal TV and stuff like that. So it was a lot. And I remember one morning I said to my wife, this is a lot of exposure, and voicing the self-doubt to her. And she said something very important. Instead of going in there trying to convince them you're good enough for the job, you should remember that they are the ones who appointed you. They did their due diligence. They knew exactly what you were and what you stood for and why they put you into that role. So stop worrying about and convincing yourself you have to convince them that you're good enough for the job, and just do it. And that was a good message to leave home. And driving down to work, I actually somehow switched, going, it's true. These people, they knew what they were doing. They appointed me for the role because they knew I can do it. So stop worrying about convincing them or proving to them, and focus on the task. And that really helped me. So that's also when I speak to younger talents in Nestlé, I try to tell them that stop worrying about whether or not you're good enough for the role, because the system wouldn't have put you into that role if you're not good enough for it.
I think that's a really good way to look at it. I think anyone at any career level, when those doubts creep in, I think, to remind yourself that,
Easier said than done.
of course,
Easier said
of course
than
it's
done.
easy.
Because still today, I have self-doubt. We make decisions, and decisions that can make or break the bottom line of a Nestlé. You have self-doubt. But again, if you have self-awareness, right, you can speak to people about it. And if you have a good, solid team around you to bounce off the ideas, and then your decision making becomes less risky because it's contained risk, if you want.
This podcast is in partnership with Amazon Business. Amazon Business is your one-stop destination for everything your organization needs. Think of it as the Amazon you already know and love, but specifically re-engineered for the way you work. Amazon Business gives you access to business-only pricing on millions of items and quantity discounts that scale with your growth. It's about spending less time bogged down in those manual tasks and more time on what really matters. So head over to Amazon Business and make the power of Amazon work for you.
What's it like, you're dealing with those self-doubts when this all started, but you're obviously turning to your team to help lead this, how is it like managing a team through such a transformation?
Yeah, look, they will have ups and downs as well. So you almost need to be the shoulder to lean on. You need to be the coach on the sideline, encouraging them to go. You need to, in my view, offer your support in going in and be part of meetings, remove roadblocks, have conversations with senior execs if we need to have things changed. So I think just being there. And then one of the things in my leadership that I've always been conscious about is that in a CPO role, you are not an expert in many of the categories. Yeah. And in my view, you need to have a very low ego. And when I say that is that I don't have a need to take a decision on corporate services spend or MRO spend, spare parts in factories, because I've never bought it in my life. I have no clue about it. So I will not come in there as a dictator saying, I'm the boss now, I'm going to decide the strategy for MRO. Yeah. So having this humbleness and listening to the experts, and let the experts make the decision. Now, where you can then influence is that sometimes an expert's view on the world is very different than reality. So having the expert strategy and then helping them navigate it into what's actually implementable in reality is where you can then play the role of the leader. So I think the support you give to the team is trusting in them, delegating to them, and making them aware that you're always available for them to help them move forward.
You've obviously had a number of leadership roles before your promotion to CPO. Was being a leader something that always appealed to you? Do those leadership traits kind of come naturally? Did you have to kind of teach yourself? Just tell me a little bit of your relationship with being a leader.
Yeah, so I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a natural leader in that sense. I think my competitiveness and wanting to win has brought me into roles where I can decide things and move things forward. And for some, that then turns into become a natural leader because you're the one delivering the results. And actually, this is one of my question marks sometimes around when we promote people. We often promote people into senior leadership roles because they're great performers, but they're not necessarily great leaders. And they don't necessarily enjoy the leadership part, the people management part. And there we've also looked into whether or not we are analyzing well enough the people talent and maybe not doing them a favor, moving them into people leader roles if they are great executors, great performers. But that's sometimes in organizations the only way to move up, to have a great hire, to have a promotion is to move into people leadership roles. And there we tried also to create a career path in Nestlé Procurement where you remain an expert, but we still promote you into higher graded roles without you needing to manage people. because, as I said, a lot of people aspire to manage people just because they know that will bring them to higher graded positions. And I wanted to take that away and offer opportunities for people who are not necessarily born leaders or have the desire to lead people, but can still progress in their career.
What do you think is the kind of the most important trait a leader can have in 2026?
I don't know. I think there's many. When I get the question around what skills makes a good procurement person, I think it's curiosity. And why do I come to that word? Obviously, curiosity in understanding what's happening in the world, what's happening with your suppliers, what's happening with your business, but also curiosity in this digitalization world we're living in. I'm now 51. The chat GPTs, the Claudes of this world is also something that I'm now experiencing with. Obviously, Copilot, etc. And all these AI agents and training them, if we don't have the curiosity to play with it and learn by almost learning by doing or playing with them, I think we're going to get lost. Yeah. So I think the curiosity element is super important to have as part of that development.
You mentioned there, obviously, the transformation which AI is introducing, the evolution of procurement technology, and the fact that, right now, at the start we mentioned those kind of once in a generation crisis seems to be a kind of monthly occurrence now.
Yeah.
How do you handle the stress of working in such a volatile environment, especially given you had the added pressure of that transformation?
No, I mean, the pressure's for sure there. At the end of the day, we are not doing open heart surgery. So I tell my team often that they should not lose sleepless nights stressed over not reaching a savings target or whatever KPI, because at the end of the day, we're running a business and it's super important. But again, it's not open heart surgery. Now then, checking in, understanding the work pressure of your teams is super important. Relocating resources where needed for people who need support is one thing. Now, me personally, how I manage the pressure, I think it also comes with experience. Honestly, I've seen this movie before. There's been I've been 17 years now in procurement Nestlé, and there's been many of these crises. We also tend to say there's nothing like a crisis. We have many projects that we have over the years wanting to implement that was not a business priority. There was no resources available. But suddenly when there's a crisis, there's an opportunity to get some of these implemented. So again, maybe also my competitive nature, I see also a crisis like a problem we need to solve. I attack it as a game almost. Okay, so how can we win in this game? And when there's also a crisis, there's also a business opportunity. And the ones who manages through the crisis the better could be winning on the other side. So I think I handle pressure more as a game, something that excites me and something I want to win in.
I think it's like a healthy way to look at it. Like you mentioned, this isn't open heart surgery. You're not saving lives. How do you kind of promote that work-life balance within your team? Because, it seems that ever since the pandemic, when more people work from home, those lines between our careers and our personal lives have become more blurred than ever. So how do you kind of promote that place with yourself and for your team?
Yeah, so for me and the way I've led people through the years and still do today is based on trust. And we have policies around how many days in the office, how many days you can work from home, etc. But I basically trust people to manage within those guidelines. At the end of the day, what I look at is the task done. If they do their jobs well, and we deliver as a team, if Nestle succeeds, I almost couldn't care less if they are at the beach in the afternoon because they have delivered what was expected from them. And that's what I mean by trust. But it's clear that if people break that trust or do not adhere to the policies, then we will have to have a conversation around that. But in general, my principle is that I'm not a micromanager. If you work 3 nights a week to get the job done, and because you need to have 2 hours on a Friday to do something else, I have no problem with it. I don't even want to know.
I think that's a really good way to look at it. And if you like, you give people that trust, that flexibility, they'll pay it back because they want that kind of balance in their work life. If I gave you the chance to go back in time and speak to yourself from 2009 when you first walked into Nestlé, what's the kind of one piece of advice that you'd share with them? What would you tell them to focus on?
Yeah, this one I also get sometimes when I'm with the younger talent. It's a difficult one. I think, and probably other people would say this as well. Enjoy the now. Enjoy the journey. You know, and maybe it's because I'm a bit competitive. Every time I've managed to advance in my career and get promoted, I haven't really stopped to celebrate that. I've just been motoring on to deliver the results. I joke with my 2 boys and my wife when I got this promotion. It's like a video game. I've now completed all levels, right? Because now I'm the CPO of Nestlé. So where does the game? What's the next game in a way, right? Luckily, this level takes a bit of time to complete. So I hope to be in this role for quite a bit longer. But I think my advice to myself going back is really enjoy the journey. Don't coming back to self-doubt. Don't focus on the self-doubt, and enjoy the fantastic opportunities that a company like Nestlé has provided me.
I think it's a really good way to live in the moment, celebrate the now. You never know, it's going to come around the corner. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time today. We've got time for a few more questions. And the next one actually comes from one of our listeners, and they've asked, they are curious about AI, they want to start implementing it, but they just don't know where to start. What would kind of be your advice for that?
I don't know. I just start myself, honestly. Look, no, so basically, the interesting thing that I realized also personally using AI is that, and as a food company or FMCG, we're realizing this as well, is that the agents will start to have more and more influence on what we buy. A simple example is that I needed a new lawnmower, and I wanted to get one of these robotic ones, right, to save a bit of time and be more efficient. And I went into, I guess it was Claude or a ChatGPT, and I basically said, I need a robot lawnmower. Give me a recommendation. And basically came with, I don't know, 10 different ones. And at the end said, my recommendation in terms of price, value, would be X. And I basically clicked on it and ordered it. Yeah. This is not the purchasing behavior I would normally have. I would have sat there going website, read reviews and stuff like that. But basically I bought based on the agent's recommendation. So I'm not sure that answers the question, but it's just an example of how the world of AI is really starting to take over. And for companies like Nestlé, we need to start thinking about how do we channel our marketing towards the agents as a potential consumer as well, because eventually the agent may take the decision on what the consumer does, which was the same in my case. But where to start? We started by implementing Copilot, letting people play with it, coming back to what I said earlier about curiosity. The ones who are really advancing in using the AI is the ones who plays with it, start training their AI agents, etc. And then on a broader source-to-pay process, it's really to map out where can AI add the value, where can you streamline your processes, where can you get your data sorted, because AI is fantastic, but if the data is bad, I'm not sure AI will be very helpful. So I think where to start is to start playing with it and small step-by-step implementing where it makes sense.
I think you're right. That whole idea of being curious, start to kind of mess around with it, see what you find success with, and see what works, and kind of take it from there. So something else we like to do on the podcast is we like to get kind of leaders asking questions to one another. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind providing me with a question to ask my next guest. It can be anything at all about procurement.
That's a good one. I think there's a topic that has started to surface that I'm wondering around, and it's outsourcing. Coming back to agents. So one question, I mean, we're talking maybe 5-10 year horizon, but things move quite fast. Will the procurement of the organization of the future actually be buying stuff? Or will we have outsourced that either to a third-party company or to AI agents, etc.? So the procurement profession of the future is no longer buying stuff, but maybe just, well, not maybe just, but being the business partner, making sure that the requirements of the business are fulfilled through an agent instead of a team of buyers within our organization. It's a long question, so I guess the question is, will the procurement function be buying stuff in the future?
I think it's really an interesting question to pose, especially given the examples we were told on stage this morning about how procurement is changing in front of our eyes. It's, are we going to eventually get to that point where, like you said, it's no longer in-house, it's outsourced? Well, thank you so much, Jacob. We just got time for our finale, so we like to close things out with 3 quick-fire questions. So I just want you to say the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you this. Okay. So the first one is, what's the most exciting thing about the future of procurement?
AI.
What's one thing people still get wrong about procurement?
That we could buy better.
And what is one piece of technology we rely on now which will be obsolete in the next 5 years?
I want to say Excel, but I'm not sure it will happen.
You're not the first. I think a lot of people are gunning for that, hoping to see the back of Excel, and I don't blame them. Well, Jacob, that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much for your time today. We've really appreciated your insight. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Procurement Magazine podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another insightful conversation. We'll see you then.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Procurement Uncut, brought to you by BizClick, Procurement Magazine, and our sponsors at Amazon Business. Thanks for joining us as we strategize our way through the wild world of procurement. Before you go, don't forget we want to hear from you. Got a sticky supplier issue, a negotiation nightmare, or maybe you have an incredible procurement story to share and want to appear on the show? Send us your burning questions or your speaker pitches, and you can easily drop us a line at procurementpodcast@bizclickmedia.com. Please remember to email from your business email address, as all eligible emails will be entered into a draw to win 2 free tickets to Procurement Live worth thousands. We'll be back next week to help you save more, source smarter, and maybe even get that promotion. Until then, keep those contracts tight and your value high. We'll see you next time.